Welcome to Talkin' Targaryen. Today we're talking about House of the Dragon, Episode 5, titled We Light the Way. We did our instant take earlier in the week. Well, I should say you did our instant take earlier in the week, but this will be our full recap and analysis. Quick heads up, of course we're going to spoil everything through Episode 5, but no future spoilers. We don't watch the next time on. We haven't read the book Fire and Blood, so you're in safe territory. With that, I'm Gil.
I'm Daniel.
Let's get into it. Daniel, I'm going to hand it off to you. Take us back to the world of Westeros.
All right. We are outside of Runestone, the fortress of Runestone, which is part of the Vale. We see later Lady Rhea, Damon's wife, for the first time. She's riding a horse on her way to hunt some deer. She runs into her cousin, Sir Gerald, who asks to accompany her, but she declines. She rides off, and then Damon appears in front of her.
Very creepily, with that hood on.
And Damon does not say a word. She goes through a bunch of different insults without him responding. She asks if he's come to consummate their marriage, even though she's not willing, but the sheep might be. She asks if Visceris is sick of Damon. She insults him for being cast aside in favor of Rhaenyra. And then she asks if he's going to kill Rhaenyra. And then there's kind of this tense moment where it seems she thinks he's here to kill her. She reaches for her bow.
And then he punches the horse over and paralyzes her.
She reaches for the bow, the horse elevates, and then Damon does something, and the horse falls over.
Yeah, so I think a lot of thoughts on this scene. First, really interesting start, because you get these sweeping shots of the green landscape, her riding on her horse. And that's something you'd expect to see in a fantasy series, but not really something we've seen so far in this show. So for me, immediately it did a good job of making you feel like you're far away, and you're immediately seeing characters we don't know, and it takes you a second to find out who they are. And I very quickly liked Lady Rhea.
Yeah.
The way she was just giving him crap, cutting through the BS. So when seconds later she met her demise, felt pretty bad for her. And on the instant take, I heard you talk about how you're having a harder and harder time looking at Damon as morally gray. Yeah, I mean, I hate Damon. Like we had that question of when he was quickly executing a bunch of criminals in the streets. How careful were they being? Are all these people guilty? Well, here's somewhere we can very clearly see him with both eyes open, kill someone definitely not deserving of it, and in a very cruel way. So I will say I'm firmly not on Team Damon anymore. Not that I ever was, but like you said, I was on the fence. Now I am firmly on the other side of the fence. And we alluded to it. Yeah, the editing I thought was pretty atrocious, rare for this show.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, the one thing you can, even if you have issues with this show, the one thing you can say is aesthetically, like it looks great. And I can understand why this would be a hard scene to shoot, because you need a guy to basically push a horse over. And that's how I read it. The horse kicked its front legs up, and Damon used that opportunity to push it over, to crush her.
And he may not have actually touched the horse, but I think he just kind of got in the way, which kind of freaked it out.
And so that's just a tough, weird thing to shoot. So whatever. It's one moment that just played a little off to me. I understand what happened well enough to keep watching. So, whatever.
Yeah.
Why did he do this?
Well, it now so she was heir to Runestone because the two, and Damon explains his evil plan later on to Sir Gerald at the wedding or the wedding festivities. But basically, she's the heir to Runestone, which is a very important fortress. And now that she's passed and they have no other heirs, he has a right to that inheritance.
And why now? Why didn't he do this 2-3 years ago?
I don't think he had much of a reason to previously. I think now he's just trying to find sort of new games to play.
Yeah, I think you're right. As options run out, his proposal to marry Rhaenyra didn't work out. So now he's looking at some other options. And I do think that's still part of his motivation. He wants to get rid of this wife to free him to hopefully have Rhaenyra, or at minimum, someone that isn't Lady Rhea. But I think strategically, it's about getting that inheritance.
Yeah. So, Visceris and Rhaenyra sail to Driftmark. Visceris is seasick and ill, something we will see a lot of this episode. He's vomiting over the edge of the ship. Lionel Strong, who we now see as the new hand, is by Viserys' side, and we see Rhaenyra and Cole as well looking out at Driftmark. Any reactions to this journey?
Well, first off, I just loved seeing Lionel Strong there.
Yeah.
I've been such a fan of his character. And so if anybody was going to take the spot of right hand of the king, glad it's him. And also just, we've complimented him before, but Paddy Considine, the actor who plays Visceris, so good. He's so good at playing this weak and feeble king, while at the same time looking frustrated at how weak he is. Or I see a look in his eyes as though he knows his limitations. And then we see some of that come out later in the episode, where he even says, maybe I would have been a better man if I had been challenged. So he's just awesome.
And I love Lionel. He really has a serious look of compassion and concern when he looks at Viserys. Now, we do see a little bit of his ulterior motives later this episode through what he does with his sons. But he seems like an awesome hand. I like him a lot more than Otto, but maybe that just means he's more tactful.
Yeah.
So we then see Otto and Alicent speaking on Otto's way out of King's Landing, right? He's just been fired. I think this is the same night that he was fired. Is that right? You think it's the same night?
It seems that way.
Yeah.
It seems very shortly after.
And Alicent says to him, I don't wish to see you go. And he basically says, look, this is your fault, right? You took Rhaenyra's side instead of our side. And the scene builds up in tension a lot because she says, look, if you hadn't pushed so hard to make Aegon heir, none of this would have happened.
Right.
And then Otto has an incredible speech to her. He says, listen to me, daughter. The king will die. It may be months or years, but he will not live to be an old man. And if Rhaenyra succeeds him, war will follow. The realm will not accept her, and to secure her claim, she'll have to put your children to the sword. She'll have no choice, you know it.
And then later he adds, either you prepare Aegon to rule or you cleave to Rhaenyra and pray for her mercy. Basically telling her, your best friend is going to murder your children. And I love this whole scene. Well, first off, I always love a confrontation in the rain, emotional confrontation. And I have to say that Otto seems like he really believes in what he's saying. And I won't say that he's entirely selfless in everything he was doing, but I do think in the mix of motivation, one part, I want to get some say on the throne. I want my daughter to be there. And there's also another part of he legitimately is trying to stop all-out war in the realm. So this somewhat, I've had a roller coaster feeling toward Otto, where at first I'm like, this guy's great. And then I'm like, this guy sucks. And I still kind of go back and forth, where I do think there's a mix of some genuinely positive things he's trying to do, even though they play into some pretty awful morals of the time, where he's basically saying, we can't have a woman on the throne, but he's also not entirely wrong in terms of how the realm will react to that.
Yeah, and I really bought into him in this scene. I just thought the emotion of that speech was awesome. One thing I loved when he said war will follow, he had his voice almost cracked when he said war. It felt very tense. And then also at the end of the speech, he hugs her and then he looks her in the eye with this really sad look, and then he leaves. And I really felt it. But I agree, he brought this onto themselves, right? He's forced Alicent into this position, right? When you play the Game of Thrones, you either win or you die, right? And he's forced her to play this game. They didn't need to do this. He could have had Viserys marry somebody else, right? And we see it later in the episode too with Corlys marrying off Laenor, right? You're putting somebody into the lion's den.
Right. He could have let things go the way they were going, where Viserys would have married Laena, right?
Yes.
Now, there's a charitable way to read it, where Otto knows we got to get a new heir in here pronto. And if he marries Alicent, that's going to happen a lot sooner. It doesn't have to wait for her to grow up a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the non-charitable way to read it is he wants his blood on that throne, right?
Yeah. Which, now you could also argue that's for the good of the realm, but who knows? The last thing, with this scene was Alicent just standing there, miserable, crying, and alone. Right? I think we should just remember that this whole episode, that she is now left completely alone there.
Yeah. In need of an ally, perhaps?
Yes, but hopefully not this creepy strong guy. So Viserys and Rhaenyra arrive at Driftmark. Mm-hmm. Lord Corlys is not there to receive the king, Lionel criticizes Lady Lena for the show of disrespect, but Viserys wishes to just go on with it. And they proceed to the Hall of Nine to meet Lord Corlys.
Yeah, my only thought in that moment was very expected of Corlys to pull this minor power move, and I wondered if a better king would not say, let's just get on with it. He'd say, no, get that a-hole out here, get him kneeling in front of me, 10 seconds or I'm leaving.
Also, what an interesting choice to have Lady Lena be the one who greets him also. I think that's another just sign of poking at him.
Right. Remember where you screwed up a few years ago? Yeah.
Then we have Larys Strong and Alicent, so the creepy Strong that I mentioned before.
I just want to say I love this character. And I liked him even from the first seconds that we met him a few episodes ago, and I was so glad to see him get a little bit more time in the spotlight this episode.
I don't like him.
Really?
I feel... I'm sure. Look, I think he's an interesting character. He plays an important purpose, but it feels a little too over the top to me. Like the way he talks, maybe he'll grow on me over time, but the way he talks, it's like he's trying to convince me he's like this kind of creepy guy who listens to everything. Like I get that that's what he is. He doesn't need to oversell it this much.
So I think that's why I like him.
Yeah.
Because I didn't read it as reality breaking where the show is trying to oversell him. I read it as him in universe overselling himself, where he is so blatantly manipulative, yet he says things that are going to make you curious and ask questions and essentially tie your own noose around your neck. Because he'll mention, oh man, I was so sorry to hear the princess was unwell. What do you mean unwell? Like, he's like, oh, you didn't hear. Maybe I'm mistaken. And it's so obvious, but you give in anyway. Now, if he keeps doing this and nobody notices, like he's so obviously manipulating you, like I buy that it maybe works on Alicent. Because I think one of her flaws that we see, I think part of why she's so upset this episode is that she always gives people benefit of the doubt. So I would buy that she'd fall for his tricks. Now, if he keeps getting away with this, I might start to view it the way you do, where like, come on, people. This guy's clearly trying to manipulate you.
Fair. I'm going to look at him with a bit more of an open mind now. Maybe it's not as reality breaking as I thought. And of course, the trick he pulls off in this scene is he basically tells Alicent that a tea was delivered to Rhaenyra's chambers. Both of them know it was basically, what's the way to say it? It's a contraceptive. It's Plan B,
right?
Basically. But he's so sly about it, right? He says, oh, I thought she was sick. What good news. I must have been in error. A relief. I thought for Melos himself. Well, her condition must be something very serious. What happiness it is to have been wrong.
Yeah, that I wrote that down. Oh, what good news. And yeah, those two lines, I'm like, that's so obvious BS. But yeah, to me, just put a smile on my face.
So then what is the angle that Larys and his father, Lionel Strong, have here? Because this sets in motion a lot of the events of the episode.
Now, so I guess first off, what events does it set in motion? But Alicent being so upset toward the end of the episode, that is a result of her figuring out that she was lied to by Rhaenyra and Viserys by omission, not telling her the whole truth, that to the extent that he understood it. So it seems like he's trying to kind of corner Alicent, put a wedge between her and Rhaenyra. And what does that do? In one sense, it seems to give the Hightowers more power. And why would the Strongs want to do that? This episode makes it seem initially like they'd be against each other, right? With Otto leaving, getting fired, then Lionel Strong takes his place. So you almost think of the two of them as rivals. But I didn't take it for granted that Larys was in cahoots with his father. You take it as definitely Lionel is in on this.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Do you have any reason for saying that, or you just assume so? I
got to assume they're in cahoots. I think the Strongs they're very politically aware and astute, and we've seen I think the default assumption should be that a house is acting cohesively, unless we see evidence that they're not. Right, because that is the norm.
We need to see Lionel say like, "Oh, my son, all the crazy shenanigans he's up to."
But the other thing, two bits of evidence that this helps Lionel. One is that Lionel has never supported Rhaenyra as heir. He's always been opposed to it.
True.
From the beginning, he was practical and said the realm will never accept a woman as heir. I think that was him. I think he's the one who basically said we shouldn't break, a century of tradition by making her heir. I think the second thing is chaos is a ladder, right? And this is just pushing the realm towards war. And I think, that's something that they can get advantage out of.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think you're probably right. And this could be a good cop, bad cop thing, where Larys is kind of the bad cop, and Lionel is the one that seems like level-headed and thinking about the realm.
And we also do see Lionel has a very close relationship with his other son, Sir Harwin. I think Harwin Strong, who's one of the strongest guys like in the Seven Kingdoms. We see him. Lionel gives Harwin an order during the chaos at the wedding to go save Rhaenyra. And so clearly the two of them, like, they have communication skills with each other, work together. So I just have a feeling he works closely with his other son as well. All right, Viserys meets with Lord Corlys with his tail between his legs. He walks into the Hall of Nine. He enters the throne room. He has the throne of Driftmark there. And Rhaenyra is left outside where she's accompanied by her cousin, Lady Laena.
Let's see what we can find for breakfast.
Yes.
I'd be so happy if someone said that to me.
Viserys is sick. He's coughing throughout the conversation. Rhaenys rushes in. She's excited to greet Viserys and grabs his hand, and he's in pain. You can't even touch his hand, shake his hand anymore. Corlys informs Viserys about the passing of Lady Rhea, which is taken to be a hunting mishap, and we also learn that her skull and neck were crushed. So Damon did indeed do what we thought he did with that rock. Viserys then proposes a marriage between Laenor and Rhaenyra. Corlys is honored, but there are certain details he would wish clarified regarding the succession. Viserys explains that Rhaenyra will inherit the throne, and her and Laenor's firstborn child, regardless of gender, will inherit the throne. And then Corlys wishes to have the children bear the Valyrian name, and so the Targaryen dynasty would end with Rhaenyra. But Viserys refuses that and instead offers a compromise where all the children will be born Valyrian, but upon ascending to the throne, they will bear the name Targaryen. Reactions?
This is quite an equitable compromise, I thought. Well, first off, I love the way that people in this world kind of look at each other with a little bit of a wink of like, we all know we're playing a game here. And I love Corlys was clearly in negotiation mode because he didn't say, I want them to take on their father's name. He said, I assume we'll continue the tradition. They'll take on their father's name. And Viserys and Corlys, everyone in the room knows that is an incorrect assumption. So there's this veneer over everything until Viserys coughs, and then you see the genuine concern. And so that's something I just enjoy every scene like this, where there's that kind of underlying tension. I also love the fact that Rhaenys and Corlys both obviously know that Damon killed his wife. They're like, it was a hunting accident. How odd, considering she's such a great hunter. The gods are cruel. Yes, indeed. It kind of reminds me of Larys. It's just, we all know what's happening here, but we all also know we have to kind of play this game.
Yeah. Another thing on this scene is just Viserys just seems so weak and pathetic. And when he says dragons will rule the Seven Kingdoms for the next 100 years, just as they did the last, you're just like, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Right.
Well, I guess it does. They rule for another like 170 years or something.
Right.
All right. Viserys isn't completely wrong.
Yeah, he got it. He did his duty.
Fair enough. All right. Laenor and Rhaenyra, the bride and groom to be, take a walk on the beach together. Speaking through the euphemism of roast duck and goose, Rhaenyra expresses that she knows Laenor prefers the company of men, and that she also prefers...
Hey, he'll grow out of it. Yeah. There is nothing quite like betting a woman.
Like the comfort of a woman. So they agree to perform their duty of marriage, but be allowed to dine as they see fit outside of marriage.
Right. Just another... it's one of those things where you say, okay, we're going to have two characters on Game of Thrones discuss having an open relationship. And I just wonder, how do you put that through the language of Game of Thrones? And it was just so fun to watch. And it was just a nice, rare, just very equitable, good conversation where two people came to a agreement they were happy with.
It actually is really refreshing, right? The two of them actually almost seem to have a healthy relationship with one another where they can discuss things and figure out like, all right, what suits both of us? And they like came up with an answer.
Yeah, and I felt good about it. I knew it wasn't going to... Anytime I feel good about something in this world, it's got that dark cloud over, I know it's not going to go well. But in the moment, I felt good about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very sad. Both of them think they can get sort of everything they want, and it does not take long for those dreams to fall apart in this
a lot
episode.
of hard lessons to learn.
So after Viserys and Lord Corlys discuss this marriage proposal, we see Corlys and Rhaenys alone together. And this might be the first time I think we actually see them alone. So we start to learn a little bit more about their relationship. So Corlys inquires whether Laenor and Rhaenyra are getting along, and Rhaenys reminds him of Laenor's true nature,
right,
as you mentioned before, but Corlys says, I'll grow out of it. Rhaenys then explains her concern that they're placing their son in danger. So when Rhaenyra ascends to the throne, war will break out, and Laenor will be in danger. Corlys says it would be foolish for anyone in the realm to stand up against them, as they control the fleet and half of the dragons. By the way, I didn't realize half the dragons Valerians control.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. So Rhaenys asks, to what end, Corlys? Wealth, power, pride? Justice, Corlys answers. Corlys wishes to see the injustice that Rhaenys was never put on the throne rectified, but Rhaenys says she put that behind her.
Yeah, I was surprised by that answer. I was very curious when she asked him, why? What is he going to say to that? And he tries to present it as this almost selfless act. He's trying to correct an injustice that was done against Rhaenys. She should have been queen, and it was taken away from her. And I think it touches on a theme that we also see a bit with Cole. It's this kind of misguided sense of pride, justice, or honor, and specifically from men who think they're doing the right thing, and in their minds, they're probably telling themselves, we're the rational ones, and we're running the world in this great way. And not only that, but I'm doing it on behalf of a woman. I'm trying to defend Rhaenys, but he's tearing the realm apart. And maybe it's the right thing to do, but he's doing it possibly for the wrong reasons. Because it would be, if she tells him, I've moved past this. It's not yours to take up this battle and go fight it. And similar to Cole, this kind of misplaced sense of whatever, he seems almost okay with violence. I'm going to go beat the hell out of this person to death and then take my own life. Like, that is a solution. But me sleeping with Rhaenyra while she's in this open relationship, that's a bridge too far. He has this sense of justice or what's right and wrong beat into him over the years, and it takes him to these awful places.
I think you're right. I feel like everyone's just kind of lying to themselves, right? They have these random beliefs they stick to, and they, and then they take action and claim it's for not the real reasons, right? I do not believe that Corlys is doing this for Rhaenys, right? Like, Corlys definitely is doing it for wealth, power, and pride. Right? I think that's pretty clear. And then Rhaenys says she's put all this stuff behind her. It's not true either, right? She was clearly very bitter when we saw her speaking with Rhaenyra. Granted, that was like a few years ago, but I don't think either of them are being honest. And yeah,
I think that's right. I do think she probably has. I think she still has that feeling of anger and very bitter, like you said. I do think she has moved on. I don't think she's actively trying to fight that battle anymore. But I agree there's a degree of lying to themselves for both of them.
But it did strike me as really bizarre, because I did assume this was a couple playing like Machiavellian power politics all this time. And like, I guess they've not been. Like, they've not been actively discussing how do we take over the Iron Throne.
Right. She did seem very in favor. Rhaenys seemed in favor of marrying their daughter off to Visceris. But at the same time, many saw that as just politically the right thing to do, to unite these two big houses. So, as always, there are these moves that there's a charitable way to read them where it's for the greater good, or you could read it, again, as Machiavellian. She wants to get her daughter on the throne.
Yeah. So we see Laenor and his lover, Joffrey Lonmouth, together. Laenor has updated Joffrey on his arrangement with Rhaenyra, and so Joffrey's happy that they'll get to continue their relationship together. Joffrey then wonders, she has a paramour of her own. I wonder who it is.
Never trust a Joffrey.
Never. This Joffrey, all Joffrey's bad news.
Yeah. I mean, he seems like a good guy, but he makes a lethal error later in the show. I didn't really have any particular thoughts in this scene other than, in the moment, I wonder who it is, very much foreshadowing the thing that sets off the fireworks this episode.
Yeah, and the other thing is you see these two are happy together, so you just know it's not going to work out.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have Rhaenyra and Cole together on their journey back to King's Landing aboard the ship. Cole approaches Rhaenyra and suggests that the two of them run away together.
Right.
Cole says to her, I've heard you say so many times how you loathe the lot of your position, that you are to be married off at your father's whim with no thought given to the yearning of your own heart. And now the day comes. I'm asking you to come with me, away from all this, from the burdens and indignities of your inheritance. Let us leave it all behind and see the world together, where we'll be nameless and free. In Essos, you could marry me.
Right.
A marriage for love, not for the crown.
Yeah, that's what he says. And then like 10 seconds later, he's like, I thought if I married you, it would unsoil my white cloth.
Right. So what was his real motivation here? Right. This Disney fairy tale falls apart pretty quickly.
Right.
Right. It's not really about love from him either. Right. It's not about love for Rhaenyra, and it's not really about love for Cole. For him, it was some weird justification for violating his oath. Right.
Well, I think they're like everything, or like most things on this show, I think it's a mixed bag. It's hard to imagine a scenario where he hasn't developed some feelings for her. She's one of the few people in this world that we know of who he's been opening up with. She's opened up with him. He broke his vow of chastity for her. So I think there is a degree of affection for her, and I do think he'd be very happy to run off with her and get married. But probably the overriding thing is I have broken this code of honor, which is more than that, right? Like he can be executed for what he did.
Well, tortured and executed, as we'll learn later.
But he thinks that if we get married, it makes it cool, like it's okay. So I think that's the overriding motivation. And I talked a little bit about how you can be misguided by doing what you think is correct, what is the honorable thing to do. And, in Corliss's case, maybe he's lying to himself. He says he's doing it for Rhaenys when he's not really. Cole actually strikes me as someone who is not lying to himself. To me, he seems like someone who really believes he did wrong. When we see the conviction, when later on he goes to Alicent, and the only thing he asks for is kill me quickly. And then later we see him prepare to take his own life. So I think he's someone that is really brainwashed by this world and really buys into the convictions that he's meant to have. I saw one article online that said, it kind of flippantly said that he only cares about being honorable when it's convenient. He forgets all about that when he sleeps with Rhaenyra. But I actually think the issue is that he does so strongly hold those convictions. And nobody sticks to their principles all the time. People have moments of weakness, and I think that's how we're meant to read that scene with Rhaenyra. For a bunch of reasons, he caved in that moment and did something that I'm not saying is wrong, but I think he really strongly believes it's wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's not that he slipped up, it's that he's holding this conviction that was handed to him by the realm. And I almost think the lesson is you need to know about the realm's rules, kind of like how Rhaenyra has accepted. One of the rules is I need to get married. You have to be aware of that, but you also need to have your own internal compass. So that way you can kind of play both sides of it. Do what's expected of you on the surface, but behind that, you need to have your own moral compass that guides you. And Cole, he strikes me now as someone who doesn't have that internal moral compass. He only has the thing that was handed down to him, which is I was given this post, I did something that goes against it, and now I need to take on the punishment.
Yeah, there are other Kingsguards who violated their oaths of celibacy. Not all of them confessed to the queen and then committed seppuku over it.
Right.
So, I think it's a good point that lacking this moral compass of his own, it's going to be easy for him to become a pawn to Alicent potentially. One thing though is Cole is right? Of everything he says about Rhaenyra is correct. He has heard her say over and over how much it annoys her that she can't marry for love and all this stuff. And I thought that was so cool he's right. He's pointing out exactly what Rhaenyra's been saying. And let's not forget in the very first episode, Rhaenyra said all she wants to do is travel the world and eat cake.
Right.
And Cole's saying, let's go travel the world and eat cake together. Right. And she says no.
Well, we've talked about this before because she has seemed to be a contradiction at times. Even in that first episode, she had all I want to do is eat cake. She had that line. She also had the line where she told her mother, I would rather be on the battlefield with a sword. So she jokes sometimes, I think partially as a defense mechanism, when she feels defeated. It is not an option for me to be on the battlefield. I'm not going to be the heir, so let me just joke about it. But I think now when she sees the possibility is actually there, that's where she wants to be. She does want to make a difference. She wants to rule. She believes that it's her destiny. It's been given to her. She deserves it. And so I think that's truly what she wants. And that's what she says. You know, I may chafe at my responsibilities at times, but I am the crown.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a pivotal moment because this is her fully, I think, accepting that identity. I am the crown. And I think also feeling confident that it's going to happen. Like, this is her future, and she's not going to let anybody stand in her way.
Yep.
And she's not going to... I thought it was pretty rough when she goes, and you think I would give this up in exchange for a bushel of oranges or a ship to Ashai.
Yeah, because she's missing a third thing on that list, which is a lifetime with Cole.
Yeah. Just like a real knife to the heart.
Yeah.
And then it ends with her going into a spiel about the Iron Throne looms larger than me. You know, when Aegon the Conqueror unified the Seven Kingdoms, and then Cole just walks away. He's like, I'm just speaking to like a spokesperson for the Iron Throne now.
Right.
That was painful. Also, Cole, seeing him out of his armor, I just felt like we don't see that often. It just felt like more vulnerable. For him to give this sort of like Disney speech and then to just get stabbed in the heart was pretty rough.
This episode definitely ripped off the veneer where you always saw him as a knight and now you see him as a very vulnerable boy. And did we mention that she did make the pitch that open marriage, you and I can still kiss?
And be your whore.
Yeah, how dare she even suggest such a thing? But that's it right there. He's not doing the thing that Rhaenyra is doing, which is recognize what you need to show people, but behind that, let's have a little fun. It'll be okay. But he can't accept it.
Well, it's kind of funny when Rhaenyra describes having Cole sort of on the side. She says, it'll be the way it's always been, you as my white knight, my sworn protector. Again, it just sounds, it's kind of like a fairy tale. Right? It's this weird thing where we're like combining a fairy tale with the gruesome reality of like the Game of Thrones world.
Lena even says to Damon later that you must be all the maiden's dreams. Like she basically calls him, hey, on the surface, you're a dream prince.
That's because you don't know me yet.
Maybe we can change that.
And just lastly, the cinematography in this scene, we just get this really cool shot at the end of the ship sailing away with just this huge Targaryen sail. Like the sail has just the massive like Targaryen symbol on it. In that moment, I thought it was cool just seeing how like the symbol of this house looms so large.
Yeah.
Right. It's just bigger than anybody. And it's bigger than, even if they love each other, it's bigger than that.
Right.
Viserys returns, right? He gets off the boat and he collapses.
I loved, this is probably my favorite line of the series so far. But right before the scene cuts, you just hear, we'll need leeches. It's just so Viserys' lot in life. It made me laugh so hard.
Oh my God. Poor guy. Well, before we get back to Viserys, we see Cole and Alicent together. So Alicent summons Cole to question him regarding Rhaenyra's
I did it! I slept with her! Please don't kill me too hard.
So what did you think of this scene?
Yeah, I laughed. Again, these things aren't funny, but they are. Because you just keep thinking, don't say it. She doesn't know. And you know he's going to blurt it out. Though it is funny because it felt... Okay, when you were saying it felt kind of on the nose just how manipulative Larys is.
Yeah.
To me, Alicent, she kept stopping.
Yeah.
With the thing that happened, between...
Of course, I would never question the princess and... Yeah.
Right, she like 3 times stops just before saying something, which would indicate she's not talking about him. So it's hard for me not to read that as... Is she purposefully doing that? She doesn't want to give up too much to see if he feels the pressure and confesses to something, or does she just not want to say it?
I don't think Alicent is that tactful yet. I mean, I fully, maybe she's that good, but I fully bought into her performance of like she is questioning the virtue of the princess and of her friend, and she just like was struggling to do it.
So she's just having a hard time getting the words out, and that's why she stops short of saying, "I'm talking about Damon."
Well, you know what we could check? Was she... So she was acting nervous, but we know when she's actually nervous, she picks at her fingernails. Was she picking at her fingernails in that scene?
Yeah, let's do a replay. I mean, either way, I think she'd be nervous. But I mentioned it earlier, but this scene has the evidence of why I think Cole really believes in his convictions, where he's ready to die, right?
Yeah.
His only thing he asks for is don't torture me before you kill me. Which one more thing I'd say about that is, to me, that means that him wanting to marry Rhaenyra is not just something for other people. He's not saying I soiled the white cloth in other people's eyes and I want to correct that. I think it's in his own eyes. That's why he's willing to die, because he feels like he betrayed himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is not a compliment. Just one more thing. I think he is. The problem is that he's bought into it too much.
Yeah. Just what an idiot, though. Just what an idiot. I said this on the Insta-Take, and I'll say it again. If I ever think somebody's accusing me of something and I feel like confessing, I'm just going to wait. Just wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Just wait until like they finish saying what they're saying.
But I guess what I'm saying is I actually don't even think he's an idiot. Or he is, but not for that reason. He almost wanted to...
You're right, because he wanted to confess anyway, because he did feel guilty and he felt like he needed to do the right thing.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes him an idiot. But not because he accidentally confessed.
That's true.
Or at least misguided.
Yeah. All right, back to Visceris and his leeching. So we see the maesters working on him. He looks pretty unwell. The junior maester suggests offering Visceris a fresh set of herbal poultices. But the Grand Maester insists...
The leechings.
Yeah.
The leechings have always brought his grace relief.
Once the maesters leave, Visceris asks Lionel if he will be remembered as a good king. And Lionel responds...
Why wouldn't you?
Lionel basically says, look, you've ruled over peacetime. It's been nice.
Yeah.
And Visceris says, but there is a part of me that wishes I had been tested. I often think that in the crucible I may have been forged a different man. Many that are tested only wish to have been spared it, Lionel responds. And pretty bleak moment of Visceris sort of facing the fact head on that, yeah, he's probably not really going to be remembered, and we don't really know. Did he have the character to survive wartime? I think it's pretty clear no. But he doesn't know.
Yeah, very poignant moment where he says, it is perhaps best not to know. And I felt for him more in this scene than I have in a while. And basically saying, my life has been too easy, and that's what's making him depressed. That's what he regrets as he faces his demise. And that feels so real. In life, you want to have a productive life. And when you don't feel useful, that's one of the worst things you can feel. The thing is, in this world, being productive has been intertwined with the idea of conquering and killing people. So if you read underneath what he's saying, I wish I got to kill more people.
Yeah.
Basically. You're not like a serial killer, but I think it's worth noting how synonymous violence has become with being noble and doing something to be proud of. Also, I don't know if this was the intent, but I think Alun even said this on the Instant Take, but doesn't it feel like the Maester has been slowly poisoning the king? Because someone offers up, like, you could do leeching and have him drink the tea.
No. The leeching. The leeching.
That's like taking Tylenol and alcohol at the same time. Half the people listening are like, what? What? Are we supposed to do that? Yeah, so it came off that way. I don't know if that's the intent. I think the bigger theme with the leeches is, as king, especially if you're weak and easily preyed upon, you will literally be leeched upon until there's just nothing left. And that's what we're seeing with Visceris.
Yeah, all I wrote here as my reaction was poor Visceris.
Yeah.
And, the other thing, too, is he ascended to the throne at, he was already old when he ascended to the throne, right? I don't know what he was doing before then, but he didn't have a lifetime to figure this out. He had, a decade and a half.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard.
Also, yeah, agreed. I mean, it's like you said, he hasn't been in the crucible. Nothing has forged him into a better man. He asks where the queen is. She is oddly missing, and she's always there when he needs her.
Yeah.
And I think, they say, I hear she's busy. She's not here. But kind of similar to Cole, I feel like the two of them have been underestimated in a sense or mistreated, but thinking they're so naive it's not going to be a problem. Like, oh, I'm gonna sleep with Cole. There's not going to be any issues with that. Or I'm going to lie to Alicent. She's not going to know any better. It's fine. But I think for both of them this episode, that's kind of exploding. So in Alicent's case, she has been too trusting, like I said, giving so many people benefit of the doubt, and now she sees she's been betrayed. And so this is at least the first little rally against, what's the word you use when you kind of rise up? What's the word? When like...
Ascension.
No, when like a country wants to overthrow the government.
A revolution?
Revolt. This is kind of her first minor
Yeah.
revolt. Like, I'm always supposed to be there by Viserys' side. I'm not going to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. Time for the welcome feast, the beginning of the celebrations leading up to the royal wedding. So we see dragons flying overhead King's Landing and all these ships arriving. And then we see like the banquet hall and all these important lords and ladies there. First, we see Jason Lannister.
Right, even before that, I just got to say I love that Game of Thrones knows that we know if there's a wedding approaching, that's just the worst possible scenario. You don't want to be anywhere near that.
So yeah, the tension already starts ratcheting it up.
Yeah.
Because there's a wedding.
You hear the drums, and it's like, oh, a wedding. But for us, those drums, might as well be war drums.
Yeah. So all these different lords are basically coming to say hi to Viserys. First, we have Jason Lannister who comes up, and Rhaenyra makes fun of him a little bit.
His presence, always such a pleasure.
Yes. And he makes some rude comments about women.
Yep.
And then he moves on.
But I got to say, by the way, I love that his name is Jason. I just feel like everyone's like, Damon, Alicent, Viserys. Oh, hey, Jason.
Jason's just like a dude at a frat party who just will not leave you alone.
You know why women don't fight wars? They don't want to be ready in time.
So then we have the High Towers walk up to the throne, but Sir Gerald cuts in front of them. Sir Gerald from the Vale, Lady Rhea's cousin. And he starts to discuss the death of his cousin, Lady Rhea, with them. But then they're interrupted by the Valyrians making a grand entrance into the hall. After that, Viserys stands to give his speech, and then Damon walks in, uninvited.
Right.
Everybody stares at him, and then he goes and he sits down. And then Viserys again is trying to give his speech. And then Alicent walks in, unexpectedly wearing green.
And one thing I love is the way they keep showing us the reaction before the reveal. Because, again, they know we're feeling all that tension. We're at a Game of Thrones wedding. So Viserys stops his speech, and you're wondering, what does he see? What horrible thing is interrupted the ceremony? And it's Alicent. And then, of course, again, later we see the reaction before we see the actual violence.
And then I also really want to thank the writers of the show for explaining to us what the green means. We hear Larys Strong say to his brother, Sir Harwin Strong, that green is the color that the High Tower beacon glows when Old Town calls its bannermen to war. And then, so then Alicent, when she finishes walking in, she looks over at Rhaenyra and goes, "Congratulations, stepdaughter. What a blessing this is for you." And then she kisses Viserys on the cheek.
Yeah. The most passive-aggressive. Again, this is her revolting. For her to call Rhaenyra stepdaughter, that's like one of the more cutting things that she could say.
Yeah, and I think it's also saying, like, look, I'm just going to embrace my role now, right? I thought we were friends. No, now I'm the queen. And now I'm the queen of House Hightower.
Right. Because she said last episode how she feels like there's Lady Alicent and there's the queen. The two of those are opposing forces. And here she's basically tossing aside the part of her that was friends with Rhaenyra.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this scene? This part of the scene, a bunch more is about to happen.
Yeah, I definitely have thoughts on this scene. Let's keep going.
All right. One other thing, just Viserys is giving his like motivational speech. He's practically falling over, like dying, as he says, "I hope to herald in a second age of dragons in Westeros."
Yeah, it almost comes off as parody. Like if you were doing an SNL sketch and you had King Viserys, he would just constantly be on the verge of falling over and dying. And later, when things get really hectic and it just cuts back to him and he's about to fall over, part of you just wants to laugh at how insane all of this is.
Yeah.
And I don't want people to think I'm just watching this show like, ha, 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 at everything, because I think I've said it a few times. But It's a laughter out of discomfort. Like, wow, things are going horribly.
All right, it's wedding festivities. Let's have some fun. Rhaenyra and Laenor start to dance together, and it seems like they genuinely have some fun dancing, and we get to enjoy seeing every single person's reaction to their dancing. Damon, Cole, Joffrey, Visceris, everybody, they all react in unique ways, and then everybody begins to dance.
It does seem like Rhaenyra and Laenor are so blissfully unaware of just the 50 powder kegs around them.
And I have to say, I've never found a dance sequence like in a show entertaining really until this one. Like watching everybody dance with these like drum beats and this intense music, and the whole time I'm just waiting for somebody to like come out and kill everybody. Very tense.
While you were watching, where was your mind going?
It was going a mile a minute. I was like, there's so many bad things that can happen here. I thought Cole was going to kill somebody. I thought Sir Gerald was going to kill somebody. I thought somebody I've never heard of is going to kill somebody.
Yeah. Damon's dragon's going to come, just rip the roof right off and start burning people.
Yeah, what were you thinking?
I was thinking something with Damon.
Yeah.
I just figured how many times are you going to kick him out and he comes back. This time he's going to just slaughter a bunch of people.
Yeah. Especially seeing as he's not morally gray anymore.
Yeah, strategically, I couldn't really see the benefit of killing everyone. Yeah. I just had a feeling something bad was going to happen.
All right, so a bunch happens in the rest of the scene, but during all this dancing, Alicent gets up from the table and goes to see Lord Hightower, and he says to her, "I worried that given leave of your father's shadow, you might wither in King's Landing's sun, but you stood tall. Know that Old Town stands with you."
Yeah, it feels like Alicent is potentially set up to become this independent force, where Viserys is a feeble king who basically listens to her anyway. And now she's not really on Rhaenyra's side anymore. So she could kind of be out for herself, and she's backed by Old Town. Now, what do they want? And is it aligned with what she wants? Does she even know what she wants? And then where do Larys and Lionel Strong fit into all that? So it's complicated. I don't know exactly what it's setting up, but it's pretty interesting.
I think the Hightower motivations are mostly aligned at this point, right? Alicent wants to keep herself and her children alive, and the Hightowers want her son on the Iron Throne.
Right.
And maybe not that aligned, right? Because you could also just run away.
Yeah.
But, Alicent is there in King's Landing, and she is completely alone, right? And I think that's her wearing the green, right? She's calling her bannermen saying, like, look, I need help, right? I am alone here in King's Landing with my vulnerable children, right? I need my family to protect me, but I'm also standing tall, and I'm here to, like, fight for you guys.
Right. And I think the one place where there might be a little bit of disconnect is that her priority is probably my children live. The Old Towers, that's up there, but number one is we want one of them to be the heir.
Yeah. Now, I do think we're also going to see Alicent's motivations change over time, because I think we're going to start seeing her care more and more about power.
Oh, I think so. Especially the more people take advantage of her, the more she's like, "This, screw you guys. You know what? Yeah, my children are going to be heir."
And she's good at these games too. Like, she is good at them. She's not really played the games. She hasn't had the power as a motivation, but she's been good at what she's been trying to do.
Yeah, we've said, and from episode 1, we've seen that she has very high EQ, emotional intelligence, which she could wield as a weapon. And she just hasn't really, I think, knowingly done that yet.
Okay, next we have another tense encounter. Sir Gerald confronts Damon. So he walks up to Damon right in front of the king, right in front of Viserys and his hand, Lionel, and accuses Damon of murdering his cousin, Damon's wife, Lady Rhea.
And I love Damon. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm glad you're here, because I wanted to talk about my inheritance.
Damn, that was brutal. Damon is such an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, just, man. At first, he's like, oh, what are you talking about? And then he goes, right. Tragic thing that happened there, wasn't it? Like,
yeah.
What a jerk.
Yep.
What else you got out of that scene?
No, that's pretty much it. I think we see his machinations. We see that he's creating enemies. So, yeah, let's just see where it goes.
Yeah, and just poor Sir Gerald, right? Like, this guy's not made for this world. Like, I don't know. You don't just go right up to Damon and make this accusation.
Yeah, it felt very Ned Stark.
Yes.
Going and saying that he knows, that the children were born of Jaime Lannister.
Yeah. And then just no respect for the king, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're just going to go right up in front of the king and just accuse his brother of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely shows that we keep hearing that people are starting to look at the Targaryens as weak. This is one of those moments where we see an example of it.
Yeah, and I think like this whole time you're just kind of seeing everybody shoot their shot now, like right in front of the king, right? Like Sir Gerald's got business, he's just going to go take care of it. Alicent now has her own business, she's just going to take care of it during Viserys' speech. Like, yeah, all the vultures are coming in now, and they're just going to do what they want to do.
All the leeches, if you will.
And rats.
That's right.
Okay, we have more dancing. Damon locks eyes with Lena, and then they begin to dance, and they flirt together. And interspersed with them dancing, we also see Joffrey and Laenor speaking about how Joffrey has discovered who Rhaenyra's paramour is, and indicating Cole. And the reason he knows it's him is you can see that the man is full...
Sea-struck.
Yes. One of the greatest phrases I've ever heard.
Sure. Basically, he looks very sullen and miserable the entire night.
Yeah.
The way a man only does when he is in the cold grasp of unrequited love.
Yeah.
/ having soiled his white cloth.
Anything else from that little part of the scene there?
Damon flirting with Lena was very interesting to me. Again, I don't have that much to say other than that is definitely something to earmark and see where that goes.
Yeah.
What is his motivation there? What is her motivation there? Is she trying to carve out a little power for herself? Or is this just Damon teaming up with Team Sea Snake Part 2?
Yeah. I kind of feel like Damon's just shaking the box and he's just like, let's just see what happens.
He saw the way her eyes lit up when they saw each other and he's like, oh, okay, here's just an angle to work on.
Yeah. Or he also might just be like, oh, that's like a pretty girl.
It could be, yeah.
I do really like Laenor. This scene in particular, we see Laenor dancing, and then he's just slowly dancing towards Joffrey, and he just makes this really funny dance move to like align himself next to Joffrey so the two of them can start talking, and it just looks so funny. It's like, you're not fooling anybody.
Yeah.
Like, clearly you wanted to go stand next to Joffrey and talk to him,
right.
but it just looked really funny and like humanizing, and I generally found also the Laenor-Rhaenyra relationship like very humanizing. Like, they just seemed like two sort of normal people.
Yeah.
All right. Cole and Joffrey. So Joffrey goes up to Cole, and you know, like in a video game where you can just like keep trying to talk to like the guards and like they won't respond to you.
Move along.
Yeah. So basically that's what Joffrey's doing to Cole. But Joffrey just keeps going. He says, "You don't know me, Sir Criston, but we are both deeply invested in this union. Sir Laenor is quite dear to me, as I know the princess is to you. We should swear to each other to guard them and their secrets, because if those are kept safe, then so are we all."
Yeah, I felt like this was a pretty bad misplay. This is a strong knight, one of the only people he's probably the only guy in that room that has actual combat experience. He's in a very vulnerable state. You yourself are the one who noticed that. And now you're going to go up to him and be like, hey, I know about the thing that you were willing to die over earlier. I'm not saying that he should have gotten punched a million times until he died. But I just think that was a really bad misplay.
Yeah, and then right after that conversation, you can just see that Cole begins to stew, way more, and
grabs
it's just
a sword.
Bomb.
Yeah, I mean, both of them. I would say Cole was more in the wrong. But yeah, that was really hard to watch because you just know that is not going to go well.
Yeah. Next, we see Damon dancing with Rhaenyra, and they start to get aggressive with each other in High Valyrian. And basically, Damon gets very close to her and starts saying that, the two of them can still get married. And she kind of challenges him to do it. She's like, all right, just get past the King's Guard, take me to Runestone and marry me.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure how to read this scene from Damon's standpoint. Does he legitimately think this is still a possibility, or is he just kind of messing around? Or it is somebody that he has affection for, they had a relationship, and this is almost just saying, like, what are you doing? Like, how could you let this happen? And then I think she's so moved on from him, where she's doing what she knows she needs to do, and so she's just kind of throwing it back in his face.
Yeah. Yeah, she's challenging him the same way she did back on Dragonstone, right? Just kind of calling him out on his bullshit. Is like, look, just take me and marry me. But he's not going to do it. Yeah, I kind of feel like Damon doesn't really know what he's doing. I agree. I think he has some affection for her, but also he's trying to play political games, and like I just think he doesn't know.
I think often he doesn't know exactly what he's doing.
Yeah, and so the tension starts to ramp up, right, between the two of them. The music gets intense, and then all of a sudden they're screaming, and we don't really know what's happening until we finally see that Cole is attacking Joffrey. Rhaenyra screams to Laenor. Laenor runs in. He intervenes, but Cole punches him. By the way, I didn't notice that on my first watch.
Yeah, I didn't catch that.
Cole punched the future king consort, is the term. Somebody pulls Joffrey. Somebody pulls Laenor away to keep him safe, and Cole just absolutely obliterates Joffrey.
Yeah, a lot on this scene. One, I already said it before, but I love that we see the reaction first before you see what's happening. Because in terms of ramping up the tension, that just puts it through the roof. Because you're no longer afraid something bad is going to happen. Something bad is happening. Yeah. You just don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it very much puts you in the scene because most of the people in the room don't know what's happening. It's just a panic. So you're panicking too, and then you see the reveal. And I just love, we said it before too, this is the pure chaos of what's happening. Meanwhile, Visceris can barely stand up.
And he's bleeding.
It almost looked to me like I didn't notice at first he had a handkerchief in his hand, so it looked like he was using his hair to catch the blood from his nose. Also, we see Rhaenyra looking helpless.
Yeah.
Which is not something we usually see. And it was just this little reminder that she still has a lot of growing up to do. She is essentially still a child, where when she's stuck in that crowd, there's not much she can do. And the gore. I have never seen a face that punched before.
Yeah.
It almost looked like he punched his brain out of his skull. It looked so bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do. It really changed how I looked at Cole.
Yeah.
Do you know who saved Rhaenyra?
It was the big Hightower guy. Yeah.
No, the big strong guy, Sir Harwin.
Oh, that's what
Sir
I mean.
Harwin
Yeah.
Strong.
Lionel Strong's other son.
Yes. That was interesting too. Is Sir Harwin looks at Lionel, and then Lionel's like, "All right, go ahead." Like he's looking for permission of like, "What do you want me to do?"
Yeah. Do we want the princess?
Yeah. Do we want to keep her alive or no?
Yeah.
All right. Now time for the wedding. Awesome. So we've had all the fun festivities. It was supposed to be 7 days, but we've just compressed it all into an afternoon. And now they're just going to host the wedding. The food is still there from the banquet. The blood is still on the ground. And both the bride and groom give their vows to each other through tears. And while that wedding is happening, we see Cole in the Godswood about to kill himself when Alicent appears. And then the two are happily married and Viserys collapses.
Right. And we've seen before that when Alicent shows up when a man is at his most vulnerable, she ends up queen. And well, basically, Viserys he's very easily guided by Alicent, because she showed up at that most vulnerable point in his life. And now we see Cole at his most vulnerable. And if she shows up to essentially stop him and save him, like you said earlier, he's essentially a pawn at that point. Whether she chooses to use him as a pawn or not, we'll see. But yeah, I'm very curious to see what she has in mind when she stops him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that wedding at the end there, what else can you say besides just that sucks for them? They just both look so miserable. The thing that caught my attention is, of course, the rat that seemed to be licking up Joffrey's blood, right? And I think this show has spent a lot of time sort of unromanticizing and unglamorizing violence. Anytime there's violence, for the most part, it's squabbles. It's really stupid and pointless violence. And there's a version of this story where Cole defends the honor. It's a knight protecting the honor of a princess. But instead, it's this brainwashed fool senselessly beating someone to death in a childish fit of rage. And the end result is rat food, while a feeble king lays on the ground nearby. And so I think it does exactly what I said before. It takes violence and just shows you just how baseless and senseless it is. That's what the rat said to me.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of The Departed.
And the other thing is it just shows that war is coming and everyone's coming to feast on Viserys' remains.
Yep.
Brutal ending.
Yeah.
Pretty rough. Cole Why did they let Cole go?
Yeah, I heard you guys talking about this on the Instant Take. I took it as just there was so much chaos, and it just, while the insanity was going on, he was able to sort of slip away. I think any longer, if any more time had passed, they would have sent somebody after him. That was kind of the way I read that. And then you brought it up on the Instant Take. He's a Kingsguard, so you don't want to jump the gun in arresting him. So I think it was a combination of those two things.
Why didn't he at least just like stab the guy? Like he had to bash his face in.
It was emotional. I don't think he was thinking it through.
Yeah. Damn. He really screwed up.
He did. And we didn't say it at the beginning because you didn't ask me my overall thoughts.
Oh, any overall thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, I really liked this episode. I mean, I agree with everything you guys said on the Instant Take. This was just tension throughout the entire episode, and then all the stuff we've been loving about the show, just how rich these characters are, where you can constantly wonder about their motivations and where everything's going. Love the episode. Can't wait for the next one. I think we're halfway through the season. I think we're past the halfway point now, because I thought there were going to be, I don't know if there's 8 or 10 episodes, but we're at least at the halfway point, which is very exciting.
I thought this was awesome. Like this episode has, I feel like I keep saying every episode. Now I'm like, all right, now I'm a fan of the show. But this episode has been my favorite, the whole series. And it has me, on the edge of my seat. I'm so excited. Awesome.
Any other thoughts, Daniel, to wrap this up?
No, it was awesome. And Cole is just such an idiot. Man. I feel bad that on the Instant Take, I think I kept saying that I feel bad for Cole. Like, just let me clarify. I feel really bad for the other guy more. Like, I feel a lot worse for Joffrey.
Yeah. So I think with that, I will say this last thing about Cole. I am so curious where he goes from here.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like he is a totally defeated shell of a human being. And if Alicent does, she stopped him in that scene. If that truly was, okay, he's now not going to take his own life and continue on. Just so curious where he's going to go.
Yeah.
With that, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more. And if you're like, video, the hell are you talking about? It's a podcast. Well, see the link in the description if you want to check us out on YouTube. We do these instant takes. We do the instant takes live right after the episode every week. And then, of course, these full takes later in the week. If you're watching us and you'd rather listen on a podcast, just search Talking Targaryen on any podcast app or see the links in the description. You can also support us on Patreon. We do exclusive videos there and some other fun stuff. Link in the description. Lastly, if you want to talk to other fans and keep the conversation going, check out the Discord. Link in the description. With that, I'm Gil.
I'm Daniel.
Dracarys. Now, doesn't Alicent always wear green? Go back and look. I think she's always wearing green.
Yeah, but this is like a special occasion.
Yeah, so she should have put on something
not
the color of war.